How you doing, Duff here? What you see in front of you is what I woke up to this morning. One of my two AnyCubic i3 Megas evidently had a problem. It was printing something I print all the time, a side to one of my electric unicycle stands that I sell, and I woke up to this. Just the print bed has dust all over it, and there's a hardened glob of plastic encasing the print head. On the screen when I woke up, the printer was still on, but it was stopped at like 60% or something like that. And so I turned it off, turned it back on, and hoped that I could address it the way that I normally do. So normally what I would do in a situation like this is turn the printer on and bring the print head up to like 240 or something like that, get it nice and hot, and then just slowly work the stuff off the print head. Oh wow, well, that's better. What I was going to show you was what was happening when I was turning it on is I was getting a temperature sensor error. It was showing the print head temperature is 790 degrees. Right now it's showing accurate temperature actually, which is the first time it's done that. So I'm going to see if I can get the print head up to, or the nozzle up to temperature, and maybe get this mess off. Awesome if I could, because I thought I was going to have to use a heat gun to try to address this. Alright, so let's go to Tools. Let's see. I'm not sure. Well, one way to do it is to go to Filament and Filament Remove. It will automatically bring the print head up to 230, which is probably hot enough. So let's heat this up and see what happens. I don't know if you can see that, but okay, so it was supposed to bring it up to 230. According to this, it's 240. So, I still think I'm going to have a problem with the thermistor, but at least maybe I can get this off. I'm hoping that once I get all the shit off, it will actually maybe fix itself. We'll see. If not, I'm going to have to just get another print head altogether. So let's see if this stuff comes off. I mean, this is like, I can't even tell you how buried this thing is. It must have been running for hours and hours and hours like this. Right now it is not feeling loose at all. It's still feeling like a locked piece of plastic. Of course, with as much plastic as here, it might take a long time until the heat from the print head would be able to do anything. Alright, I'm going to try to take the heat gun to the outside and see if I can get it loosened up somehow. I mean, it is just, it's like wedged up in there. I don't really even see the point of this, other than at least getting enough off that I can take it apart to replace it, because this is the worst mess I think I've ever seen since I've been 3D printing. I'm not quite sure what this is accomplishing other than just melting. I mean, it is melting and it is slowly dropping off. So, I'm not sure if this is going to actually get me anywhere or not, but we'll see. Alright, so I was cooking that thing for a while, set off a smoke detector, and all this stuff just got super, super hot. So, I mean, I'm kind of writing this off as a loss. I'm not going to be able to recover this. Now, it's just a matter of what I'm going to need to replace to get this thing back going again. I'm thinking I'm going to have to replace this whole assembly, not just the hot end. Get these bolts off that are around the hot end so I can get a better look at what's going on. And I've had the heat gun off for probably 5 minutes, but the stuff is still freaking burning hot, so I probably did more harm than good just trying to bake it. Alright, so there's 4 screws right where the PTF2 goes into the hot end. I'm taking those off. I took off these 2 screws that are up front here.
Okay, in this part of the video, I did not realize that there are another 2 bolts in the back that need to be removed in the back bottom of the hot end assembly to allow you to remove the cage easily to get access to the fans on either side, as well as the circuit board that the fans plug into, as well as some of the hot end wires. So I'm going to be taking out a bunch of stuff with me struggling trying to do this without removing that piece first, because it was a waste of time.
Piece of plastic just dropped out. Hot end is loose. That's part of the replacement. Cut. Alright. Got a fan hanging down here. And here is the big globby mess. This is problematic because the cooling fan duct is welded to the plastic as well. And one of the many cool things about the i3 Mega, and I think all AnyCubic printers for that matter, is they give you a complete hot end. So the question is, how do I get that in there? So this must plug in somewhere. So if I can find out where this red wire plugs in, I can somehow separate the cooling fan here, the duct. This might not be as bad as I thought, so let me see if I can find where this plugs in. Alright, so I've shoved the new hot end in with the spacer around that neck. I wish I could say that getting it lined up and in there was easy. It required some futzing. My 3D printing hobby has a lot of futzing. So I have it in there loose, but now I have to flip it back on its back and try to get these two wires in to this little circuit board that's up here. Alright, just found something very helpful. Didn't find it on a video, but found a picture that shows that not only do you, if you remove these two top screws up here and the two bottom screws on the back of this cage, this whole cage will come off. Voila, things just got a whole lot easier. Now you can see I have way better access to the circuit boards. Now I can plug this in without issue. Look at that. Look how much easier that is. Hallelujah. And let's see, right here on the end, where that one goes. I'm glad I'm not going crazy, because it seemed like it would be ridiculous if they expected people to do what I was doing there. And yeah, like now I can put this spacer in here like it's supposed to be. I have access to do everything. So yeah, make sure to take off these two screws in the back so you can just drop the whole goddamn cage off. In retrospect, this would have been a lot easier if I would have just pulled out my folding table and done the work there instead of trying to do this on the bench. Alright, I'm just tightening up these four bolts up top that hold the actual hot end itself in place. Getting them finger tight, and then I'll take the Allen wrench to them. Alright, they're nice and snug. Okay, so obviously these wires go back in. I'm hoping that they're not damaged from me cooking the hell out of it with the heat gun, which in retrospect was, I did it way too much than I should have. So I got this off, I got my coupler off. I guess I need to re-zip tie this when I'm done here. So let me plug it in, turn it on, and see what happens. everything still kind of works. Okay, I need to do a lot of cleaning here, obviously. I got shit everywhere. I'm going to clean it and then load some filament and see what happens. Hot end fan, parts cooling fan, hot end thermistor, I believe. Alright, so the saga continues. I'm not sure how I'm going to edit this all together. It's kind of convoluted where I'm at now. Got everything back together, started to print. It was printing okay, as you saw in the brief video clip. But then I started hearing a weird noise, a very weird noise, and I determined that noise was coming from the fan, the hot end fan on this side. Can you see me? Yeah. On this side of the hot end, it was making a noise. So my assumption is, since I was sitting there with the heat gun heating this entire assembly forever, that I probably damaged the fan in the process, which in retrospect was a really stupid thing to do. If you're going to try to melt that plastic off, I should have removed the hot end from the carriage here and done it at that point instead of having everything connected. That was really stupid of me in retrospect. So, but anyways, what I did is I bought a replacement fan, one of the expensive Noctua fans, 40 millimeter by 10. The cool thing about the Noctuas is they come with wiring adapters, so I can actually connect it. It has an adapter that allows me to connect it to the circuit board cleanly. The only issue is there's lots of cable here, so I'm going to have to try to do some cable management inside of this shell so it does not get in contact with the hot end. So that should be fun. So right now I'm just going to take off non-working fan or noisy fan. Okay, so I just unplugged the fan connector. The fan on this side is the first. There's three small connectors along the top of the circuit board here. It's the first one, the first small connector. I unplugged that. Now I need to remove these bolts that also have nuts on the back. So I'm not sure if this is the optimal way to do it, but I'm just going to grab the nut with my pliers and turn each one of these out. Should work, right? And I just disconnected that second side. I knew that was going to happen. Which is fine, since I now know that how to take the shroud off. It's much easier to access that circuit board than the moronic way I was doing it before. Alright, so I'm just going to take out the remaining screws and nuts and see how I can get the Noctua in there. Okay, so before removing your old fan, I would just make sure you take a peek at how it was mounted in there. With this fan, the label was facing in, so that's how I'm going to mount the Noctua as well. Alright, so what I've done here is I've mounted the fan and I am wrapping the excess cable around the perimeter of it. I'm trying to do it carefully, so I only have the... Alright, you'll see my soldering iron out. I mistakenly thought that this connector was the same as the connector of the old fan, but it is slightly different, so I'm going to have to wind up stripping the wire off my new Noctua fan and soldering it in to make it work right. So that's what I'm doing now. So the default wire harness for the Noctua has 3 wires, red, black, and yellow. You only need red and black with this setup, so I'm going to cut this off and strip this back and solder it on and hope everything's good. At least that's the plan. Here goes nothing. Did I mention that I really hate soldering? My eyes aren't good for it anymore, and my technique isn't great. I do it, but I don't enjoy it. Especially very, very thin gauge wire like this. It's such a pain. But we'll keep plugging along. Okay, it's not pretty, but I am soldered in here. Got my connector in place. So now we try to put it back together and see what happens. Okay, I have the hot end back together. I'm just quickly starting a print, even though I think I'm going to probably have to re-level the bed. I just want to see if that fan noise is gone, because you can tell right away as soon as the hot end heats up. So, waiting and seeing. Alright, so far so good. I do not hear noise from the fan, so that's good. So we're going to let it get past the first layer, because the parts cooling fan is usually turned off for the first layer. So let it get a couple layers up and see if it still is printing okay. If it is, I think our job will be complete. So you can actually see the damage that I did to this fan from the heat gun. See how that's all deformed there? That's why it was making noise. I'm hoping the radial fan, that's the parts cooling fan, is okay. I'll know in a minute. Okay, so we are on to, let's see, what layer are we on here? We're in like the third layer, I guess, right now. And still printing well. The fan is not making the god-awful noise it was making before. Down there you see the old hot end encased in plastic forevermore. I don't know, if I get motivated, I might be able to take a heat gun to it now that it's out of the printer and melt all that shit off, and it might be salvageable. I don't know. Part of me doesn't think it's worth the hassle. But who knows, maybe I'll do it. But the printer does seem to be working. Alright, so that was a big freaking mess. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to edit this together to make it something that makes sense and is logical, since I made so many mistakes along the way. There's no reason for me to include those mistakes other than just summarizing on what they were, so you can avoid them. But the end result is positive. Lessons learned from this experience. Don't take a heat gun on full power and blast your hot end while it's in the printer. You will cause damage to other components in there. Very important lesson. Maybe look at some videos on how to disassemble stuff before you start ripping into it. I could have saved myself a lot of hassle if I realized the proper way that surround cage came off to give me access to the circuit boards, to the circuit board up top to plug in the connectors. But yeah, it was a learning experience. I mean, the only thing I've ever had to do to my i3 Mega in the past was replace the heat bed when the heat bed wires broke. Other than that, the thing has been bulletproof, so this is really only the second time I've had to rip into it to any degree. So for as much printing as I've done on this machine, it's pretty damn good. I mean, these two i3 Megas here are my workhorses. I just love them. So if you found this video interesting, please give it a big thumbs up. If this is your first time visiting the channel, please consider subscribing. Feel free to leave your comments, suggestions, ideas, and jokes about my inability to properly troubleshoot things in the comment section below. And yeah, it's my first 3D video in a while, and who knows, maybe my last one in a while too, who knows. So I hope you have a good night, and until next time, Duffman out.